Yes, name's Michael, just like you said. I was just thinking about getting this presentation started, and I noticed I took all the shit off my desktop because I didn't want y'all to think I was an idiot for having some Mac Keeper or something. I had Bitdefender or something like that, so I took all that stuff off so I didn't look like an idiot. But I guess, oh, well, I still got the crap down there. So, anyways, so the reason why I put this presentation as electronic access control in Texas is because there are just a couple of things that on the emergency services end that we do differently than some of the rest of the state. And I haven't been all over the country, so I don't know what's out there and what's not out there. So I've been in the access control industry for over 10 years, and primarily here in North Texas, and I've worked on governmental, commercial, and residential. If anybody ever worked in the FBI building, or not worked there, but possibly have been there for other reasons, over there on Northwest Highway, don't go in there with a warrant for your arrest, just so you know. Wait, okay, is it kind of understood that? Yeah, luckily the warrant was for no seatbelt in Frisco or something like that, so he didn't arrest me, but he really wanted to. Here's me about to shot myself on this bottom one. Oh, no, yeah, it's fine. Electricity will kill you. So there's some of my contact information, and I'll make these slides available to you guys if you want them. So what we're going to cover real quick is just some safety stuff and liability, who can install access control equipment here in Texas, and some basic definitions, devices and brands that are common here, common setups that are in commercial and residential layouts, types of credentials, RFID tags and stuff like that, databases, which some of you may be interested in, how, if you will, vulnerable they are, and some different types of vulnerabilities, and lowering risk. I'm not going to talk about remote vulnerabilities. There was a guy from Houston that did a talk at DEF CON here recently in Vegas, and he exposed some of the vulnerabilities with the newer access control panel, and I'll have a link at the end of this, and then I'll have a link on the slides if you guys are interested in it. But he wrote a program in Python that basically would ping the network that it's on, say, okay, that it's there, I'm ready for you, and because the default password on all this stuff is in the manual, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, he was able to basically take over the unit and do whatever he wanted to do to manipulate it. All right, so this equipment that I'm going to talk about, some of the electromechanical equipment and electrical equipment is very, very dangerous, and it can kill you. So do all this stuff at your own risk. Everything I'm going to talk about is easily available online, so there's not going to be any confidentiality stuff that I'm going to talk about. There's going to be some opinions and some facts, and again, this equipment can kill you. It's very dangerous, and people have been killed by working on it or playing around it, so be careful. Briefly, if you want to sell or install this type of equipment in Texas, you can't be a felon, you need to be fingerprinted, and the fees need to be up to date. I always put that in there because that's really all they care about is the fees. Basically, if anything has transactions, it records transactions, any telephone entry or any access control, you have to be licensed. So if you have somebody working on your HOA or anything like that, and you have concerns about them, you can ask them for their license, and it'll be on record in the state of Texas. But if it records transactions, they need to be licensed or working under somebody that is licensed. Let's see, those are just some basic definitions that Texas says this is what an access control device is, and this is who can install it. So what is access control? And electronic access control is simply the ability to physically restrict access to a place or asset. So access control is not security. We don't consider security. Some companies may consider it security, but we consider it just a layer of the overall security system. It's typically not monitored in real time, which is probably one of the reasons why we don't consider it security. Security is a guy with a gun standing at the front gate or standing at the front of your building saying, hey, you can't get in. And it uses predetermined criteria. Somebody puts a database out there, said this is the database that we're going by, that's it. And a minute later or 10 years later, that's the credentials that they use. They don't make decisions in real time unless it's being monitored. Let's see, those are some common reasons why you would put access control and the needs and uses of that equipment, so I won't get into that. So devices that we're going to talk about briefly, mechanical door locks and mechanical keypads. You guys know, I don't know if you've seen any of the vulnerabilities of the push button keypads that are in front gates, and just using magnet can actually allow you to open the door. Unfortunately, I have it out in my truck to bring the display, but you can see I brought a lot of shit already, so I didn't have enough room for it. And all this stuff is free for you to play with, and if you can get my phone number out of that box, I'll buy you a beer. Using that computer or brute forcing it from the actual unit itself. And sorry, if we don't have enough time at the end, you're shit out of luck, you don't get the beer. So we'll talk about the electrical stuff, the mag locks that go on top of doors, door strikes that actually cover the latches, electronic telephone entries, and keypads I've got set up here, and then gate operators, barrier arms, overhead doors. So this is a typical setup. If you live in an HOA, you already know what this looks like. If you have a gate on your house, you already know what this looks like. There's a keypad that lets you in, there's a remote that lets you in, and it opens a gate, a barrier arm, or your garage door or something along those lines. Some of this stuff where you see the smiley face obviously has voice communications, PIN numbers, which is just using your hand, and then the emergency services stuff. Typically it's not on a residential property, but on commercial, if people live there, it's generally required in the city of Dallas, and a lot of cities follow what the city of Dallas has as far as their requirements for fire. I'm going to run through this real quick, but and the reason why I point out these brand or any brand specifically is because you may see these logos at your house or on your property, and you can kind of understand that these large companies making billions and billions of dollars have these 50 and 60 cent vulnerabilities that can easily be fixed. So that's why I point these out. So LiftMaster, largest garage door company, made $1 billion in annual sales. Nortec, which is linear, I have one of their products up here, and they made a lot of freaking money too. And Door King, you see a little bit of those in Texas, and sometimes you'll see the vans Door King of Texas riding around. They are not Door King as part of the company. All right. So we just talked about some of those devices, their uses and capabilities, those mechanical push button devices. They are generally used on pedestrian gates and doors. Their vulnerability is typically because they are mechanical, they typically cannot repeat digits. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you cannot do 1, 1, 1, 1. And permutations can only happen with those 5 digits. You can't have a combination on most of them. There are some locks that have combinations, so 4, 3, 2, 1 is the same thing as 1, 2, 3, 4. As long as you put that combination in, you're okay. Typically the ones that are labeled Kaba Ilko, of course, actually on these locks you generally don't see a label, so you have to know them to see them. But there are a few of the inexpensive ones that say digicode on it or something to that effect. That requires a permutation, not a combination, or excuse me, the other way around. It requires a combination, not a permutation. So 4, 3, 2, 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4 are the same. It does not require it. Some of these devices, the mechanical keypads, can do combinations of codes as well too. Yeah, so their factory code typically on those are 2 and 4 and then 3. So you can do combinations of them. And those particular locks that you can do combinations on, they said they fixed it, but that's one of the ones that you could put a rare earth magnet on the side, twist the handle, twist it another time, and it'll open. They say that they fixed that. So electrical magnetic locks and door strikes. One of the reasons why we use those is because they energize and de-energize very quickly. So in a pedestrian door, you've got people, as soon as they hit that button, they need it to drop because they're doing one motion and pushing it to get out. Electromechanical operators, gate operators, open and close, barrier arms that you see at the airport. That's what they do, and they can open and close heavy objects. So telephone entries, reason why we use those is because they have database and they can validate credentials. A lot of the keypads will have some of those capabilities, but not very many of them. They can have the capability to hold a database, and you can put one of these tags up to it and actually get into it. Let's see. So credentials, those are defined as a device providing personal identification. You could very well say your driver's license is a credential, but anything with like this remote, some of you guys may have these remotes for your apartment complex or your HOA that have a number on the back. That number is in essence assigned to you. We'll talk about toll tags. If you have a toll tag, the NTTA toll tag, we'll talk about that in a second as far as those numbers having to repeat themselves depending upon what system that they're on. So radio frequency identification, there's been a lot of stuff on radio frequency identification, and I would be talking out of school if I could tell you all the stuff, all the vulnerabilities with that. Personal identification numbers, badges with your image on it, those are all considered credentials. Everybody know what a rolling code remote is? You have those in your house that say LiftMaster, Secure Plus, or something like that. It's basically a device that has a transmitter and a receiver. They're programmed to each other, and then they use an algorithm to flip that code every time they see each other. So if the code is 1, they may have an algorithm that's 13, goes up or down 13 digits or whatever it is. Then the next code is 13, so on and so forth. Now the good thing about that is it's pretty secure. You can still duplicate it, and I don't have the equipment to duplicate it, but I have the equipment to duplicate the ones that don't roll. But the issue with that is if you want to screw with somebody, there's a certain point in time that they will get out of sync. You can hit the button, they say approximately 256 times. So if you got some guy that you don't like in your office or whatever, you grab his remote, you hit it 256 times. Well, you might have a lot of time on your hands if you do that, but if you do that, he'll get home, his remote's not going to work because it's gone past that algorithm that says these two remotes are the same. So, let's see. And those are typically used in residential. You don't see those in commercial all that often. Some places do, but you don't see it all that often. Toll tags. Everybody got a toll tag? Nope. Oh, maybe I'm asking the wrong people.
The one that's the removable one, they don't make those anymore. But the ones that stick on your window, that's the ones that they give out.
So they do make. That just showed a picture of it. It's pretty interesting because the reason why I have those two bars on there is because that's the tag number and the, I believe, facility code number, and that's on one of my customers' bumper. So the question is can you duplicate that? Well, I mean, the equipment is sold to just anybody else. As long as you're an authorized dealer, the equipment is sold to people that can duplicate those. I mean, NTTA has to duplicate them. They have to order them from somewhere. When somebody loses their tag and they want to give them the exact same number, they have to get it from somewhere. So,
complexes for the gate entry now, you give a full tag number.
That's correct.
Drive up, gate open.
We'll talk about that in a second. What's really interesting is because a lot of the systems are older systems like these, they have a 26-bit link, and the toll tag is 31 bits. So they truncate whatever it is, the first 5 numbers, and then after that, you could have duplicates. I have a duplicate with a couple people here in Dallas. So did I come in the gate, or did they come in the gate? And without license plate recognition or video cameras, it's hard to tell. But the scary thing about that is because you can easily duplicate that number, somebody can use it to their advantage. So governmental stuff, which I don't do that much of. Obviously, I told you my last experience. They don't like me around anymore. Oh, and by the way, I did not get that job that I went to contract for at the FBI for whatever reason. Maybe I was a security threat. But just explain rolling codes and multi-code, which is a common remote for people to use for residential. Have you guys ever seen these dip switch remotes that have 10 little switches on it like that? Or from the factory, they come 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9 on, and you get a gate guy or access guy that doesn't really want to change it or not concerned about security. They leave it like that. You'd be surprised how many gates you can go through in Highland Park down the alleys and open up just by using the factory code. And this is maybe $15 or something like that, $10 online for you to get. So if you do have a dip switch remote, be concerned. Either switch to a rolling code remote, or if you have this for your HOA and you're on the board or something like that, be concerned that once, and you see all these names on these, those are people's houses. And I do that for, obviously, because they're my customers, but that's a concern. They don't pay me and I get pissed off. I come back to their house and do whatever somebody would do if they were pissed off at somebody not paying them. I just put a lien on their house and that's it. It's funny to have a $1 million house being held up by a $100 lien, but it happens. People don't pay. Just like I was talking about, and the same thing with WIEGAND, there are a lot of people that know the vulnerabilities a lot better than I do, but just a brief description. So we were talking about that, the toll tag, you give them their toll tag numbers for, do you live in a gated community that do you mind if I ask which one? You don't have to answer. So sometimes I don't know that one. What's that?
I've been in a few of them. Pretty much anyone that's been built in the last 3 to 5 years, odds are it's going to 50-50 shot they're going to have that.
Gotcha. So the issue with that is this, a lot of this equipment is just now getting to the point to where they're recognizing the full 31 bits. So not only at that point do you have the individual tag being that person, you don't have any duplicates. And then and the other thing is as well too, and I know you guys can't see it, but there's this, you hear that beeping? You pull into your apartment complex, I got that in my car. I just got your number. All I have to do is go to Linear and say, hey, can I have a box of these numbers? So, and they'll give you just a box of these numbers, and then now I'm you. So that's a concern as well too. One of the ways around that is to use facility codes, because some people don't have the equipment that'll recognize the facility code, the first 8 bits of that 26-bit link of data. Some people don't have the ability to recognize that, so be aware of that. And the other thing is, if you ever get somebody's remote, there's the remote number right there. And they've been kind enough that if that gets scratched off, you just open up the container and it's in there as well too. So let's see, there are some proprietary protocols out there beyond WIEGAND, but they are rarely used. I was thinking of it earlier. I've been on one property here in Dallas-Fort Worth over the last 10 years that has something like that. And you look at the tag number, it has something to do with the number, but you can't, without having that algorithm that tells you what that number is, you cannot use it. So you have to actually swipe it and then say this is the number and then go program it in. So maybe 5% of the properties that I've been on, I can only think of one of them. Let's see, I showed Linear remote. I'm not showing that. So here's an example of what a card reader is. And although this thing has a mag stripe on it, which doesn't actually go with that, that's probably what you would see on somebody's card that's not secure, that doesn't have the algorithm. You'll see the facility code number and then the 5 digits that actually identify that particular card. CCTV, just be aware that these call boxes and some of these other products, this is actually one of the bigger ones, do have cameras in them. And so, yeah, so if the concern is as well, these things are old, they don't have cameras in them. Well, some of them actually do have cameras in them. And obviously, you can open up and see the coax or the UTP cable coming from it, so you know that. But at that point, they've already recorded the data. Let's see, common vulnerabilities. It's hard to call this stuff a vulnerability or an attack because this stuff's not considered security, or false sense of security is the only thing that it should be considered as. So anyways, some of the stuff that you can do with this type of media, duplicate it. I have a duplicator on me that all I have to do is be within a few hundred feet line of sight, and I can pretty much get your card as long as it's not a rolling code one. I just haven't spent the money to get the rolling code one, but they do make it. I just bought it off eBay, $100, and I can duplicate anybody's card. And then it will store four cards in there, and then I can program that to another remote with 4 buttons, and then I've got 4 individual houses or apartment communities. Let's see, we're not going to talk about social engineering. Y'all could probably school me on some of that stuff. Brute force, physically tampering with stuff, and I'll do that here in an example here in a second. Electronic brute force. You could, just by your wits alone and your smarts alone, you could probably brute force that keypad to tell you my phone number. Since we're probably not going to have time, anybody want to guess what the 4-digit PIN is?
243 4321
4321.
4321.
It's today's date. So, anyways, So 0113. I guess is that today? Is the 13th?
Yep.
Does that mean now that everybody knows, I buy everybody a beer? All right. Yeah. Thanks. Man. All right. So and then
You threw it out there, man.
I know. Hey, I'm trying to make friends.
Social engineering.
I shouldn't use big words I don't understand. Bypassing meaning there's no record of you being there, and that's could possibly be traditional locksmithing. Databases. I'll get into databases in a second, but the databases are typically formats that are so common anybody could get in there or have the software to actually get in there and get mine and your information out of there pretty easy.
Are they Mongo?
What's that?
Are they Mongo?
No.
Access.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's the two out of the three are access, and what's really interesting about it is the user interface that they make allows you to access that data, and the user interface has a password on it, but the database doesn't have a password on it. So if you want to get the information and it's 6-digit password that's all numbers, it could be pretty easy to brute force it. But why do that when you can just go into the folder that says access base and the folder that says database and just copy the database? Let's see. Am I going backwards?
Don't forget the pizza box where you got the motion sensor on the other side of the door. You stick something through the little crack, trips the motion sensor, and unlocks it. I've heard compressed air will also do that.
Oh yeah? No, I didn't think about those PIRs. I didn't think about that putting in there.
So Mr. Robot, that's how you got in one of the buildings.
So these are the interesting ones for anybody that's got $30 and a few minutes to go online. So we're going to talk about Knox lock, and we're literally talking about the locks that are in front of the buildings and in the front of the gates. Tomar, which is what's called an opticom. If you go into Plano and you look at the red lights, on top of the red lights they got a little box. One of the things I still got out of my truck, I just don't have enough room for. They've got a little box on top of there that has just a little bitty hood sticking out of it, about 2 inches, and that's the opticom system. And there are some cities, and I'll go over here in a second, that don't use those, and Dallas is one of them, and they use what's called an overhead door ingress receiver. And then the fire department drop chain looks like this. It's on the gate. You've probably seen these before if you've been in the properties. So those are the means of emergency ingress. And when I say emergency, so it's fire department, police, anybody, they'll have keys to this, and they'll also have this remote. So Overhead Door is a pretty big company. They have their corporate office here, and they make this receiver, okay? I know maybe a little bit tough to see. So they make this receiver, and it's basically 6 garage door receivers, okay, because they were, I've looked at some of the ICs on there, and even today if you go buy one of the boards, one of these boards, these ICs still have like 84 and 85 as the manufacturer date on it. And this is basically what they look like. It's just a trinary setup, and I guess I'm showing you one of the codes. But it's just a trinary setup. So you have -5 volts, 0 volts, and +5 volts. And then you have a remote that with a quick search on Google, you can get. And the scary thing about this is that gets you to any place in Dallas, Richardson, Mansfield, Mesquite, Irving, Rockwall, and Plano. I know I've installed them in Plano, but when I was searching this to put it on here to make sure I got all my information right, they said that they've gone to the Opticom system. So with another search on Google, first page, I think it was the second and the third entry down, you can go buy the Opticom tester. Now you can't see anything because it's IR, but it's basically just a little handheld tester. The only thing that stinks about these as opposed to this, you can be 100 feet away with this. This you have to get right up on it. But there's nothing saying that you can't amplify that signal to actually see it. That scary thing about this is what everybody else throughout the country uses. Now I don't know if they use the same algorithm, but throughout North Texas, I've never had any problem testing one that uses this algorithm. So that's got to be pretty scary for somebody who is on the board of the HOA and is concerned about liability. But those are the cities that use the wireless overhead door ingress receiver. So the universal tool, which is a screwdriver, can get you into this thing. And once you're in here, you get to see the FCC ID, which gives you the manufacturer's the first part of the ID, and the product. So even if you don't know the information that I gave you, you can take that, go to the FCC.help or something like that, go to their website, and depending upon how new or old it is, you can go to it and see possibly schematics, the patent, frequency, and frequency is the most important, especially when you look at something like this and see that it's not, if you will, digital, it's a trinary or binary setup. Once you get the frequency, you just buy something that's on that same frequency, and 9 times out of 10 you'll be okay. One of you math nerds, did I get my math right? All right, so there's 3 options, and there's 9 availabilities. So it's 3 to the 9th power, and then you have 6 units, you divide it by 6. So I know 3,000 times is kind of some serious brute force, but in theory you could go through and set those dip switches 3,000 times and guess. But why do that when I just showed you how to do it? Knox locks that are on the front of these gates and on the front of these properties are very, very hard to pick. Don't even bother messing with those unless you got a lot of time and are a lock picking person. But they're very expensive, and they're kind of easy to get if you can get your local fire department to sign off on having one at your house if you need it for your gate. The TOMAR device, the TOMAR device I just showed you, they have 2 different testers. I couldn't find this second tester. It's pretty interesting. It looks like a DeWalt drill, but it's got a light on the end of it, and then it has that sequence programmed into it, 2,500 feet. So you could literally be in your car and it'll shoot 2,500 feet. The thing about it is it's visible light. So if anybody were to see that, then you may have issues. But they do make IR emitters that are set to the same thing. And all the websites say to check your local laws, which basically means there's no local law that's going to allow it, but there are places out there that sell it. I showed the device that's out in my truck, and I showed the handheld tester, and those are all the brand names. And like I said, that one was a 2nd and 3rd search on Google. I could actually get that tester. Manual devices such as this. If you guys want to mess around with this afterwards, this is what you'll see on the gate, and they've got a little slot in there, and you can grab that wire, and all you need to do is pull it just a little bit. All you have to do is pull it about 1/4 inch. So if you can get, and this is illegal for y'all to have as well too, but there are plenty of picks that look similar to this that are not illegal.
Slim Jim?
Yep. Slim Jim. Is it illegal?
In Texas.
Yeah, so unless you have a locksmith,
You can carry lock picks, but you can't carry slims.
Oh, can you carry lock picks?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about that. So anyways, all we're doing is trying to pull it just a tad bit and get this pin to drop. Just like that. So we just need a little bit. We need to be able to grab it and pull it just a little bit. And then once you release this is what's on the back of the gate. Okay? That drops the chain, push the gate open. Another point of attack as well too is this is just a regular bicycle chain link. You can just pop that off and in the closed position push the gate open. All right, which is right there. It's on the back right here. And the reason why I erased there where it says fire department is because although it does say fire department, it's for the emergency services, and I don't want anybody to get a bad opinion about the fire department because they really do work their ass off. And I didn't want anybody to think that this is the fire department requiring this. This is the city of Dallas or whatever city. Like I said, most cities follow us. Like I said, I explained only a 1/2 inch or so. Can be difficult if the device is not regularly serviced because they just rust. It's just water, 2 pieces of metal rust together. So, pedestrian gates. Does anybody have a push bar on the back of any of their pedestrian gates? Or if you have a pedestrian gate that has a push bar that's inside of a building, if it's a solid device or if it's got a header where you can't reach over it, you can't do this. But this particular one has angle iron here and here that prevents this, so you can't actually attack this bar. But it's relatively simple. You just either go over the door and let this hang there, grab it at the bottom, and then you can pull the push bar. The other reason why I carry this, that's one of the reasons. The other reason why I carry this is I don't know if you're in any ADA facilities. One of the things with ADA with those handles, you have to have handles, you can't have knobs. That's what this thing's for. They make it just great for people who have disabilities with their hand, but they make it very great for me to reach over the gate, then fish it down, and then pull the handle
You
up
could
and
just
get
stick it through the mesh right there, right?
in. In this case, you can. Let's say you have a solid gate.
Okay.
If you have and there will be high security locations that take this and put a solid piece of steel on front of it. Granted, a thin piece, but yeah, that's true.
Something like that, you just take your belt off and just stick it through and.
Going back to my adult industry days. Okay.
Well.
Did you ever see that Saturday Night Live commercial where everything they said, Tracy Morgan was like, "Okay, all right, it's time to get," and they were ex adult film stars. Okay, so the telephone entry, and I probably got another 10 or 15 minutes. Sorry to take up so much of you guys' time. So telephone entry, this is not security. This is what's at the front. And the great thing about it on these is they typically will have the same key throughout the product line, throughout the product. So if you've got a key to one of them, you've got a key to all of them. And you can get in and manipulate them either by pressing a button or by using your key to actually short a wire in there and open the device. So real quickly about databases, I think this is probably the wrong group for me to say anything about databases, but mostly the 2 out of the 3 items that we talked about, this Syntex, and I talked about Linear a little bit. There's one over here in Dorking, excuse me, not in Dorking. They use Access as the underlying database. And Dorking uses a .dat file, and to the best of my knowledge, that can be anything. But when I go to that and I look up at with a free file viewer, it puts it in a hexadecimal to the left and to the right or something like that, and then it shows all the data right next to it. So it's not secure either, although the user interface is. So it gives them a false sense of security. And those user interfaces are the same thing. It's generally factory 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In Dorking, I think it's 9999. Straight right out of the manual. To download, most of the software to download is free. Most of it you do not need an account for. Okay, so there are some manufacturers that require you not only to be a dealer, insured, and have an account with them to download their software, which is the most secure. Most manufacturers do not. It's just easier for them to service their product. Am I going too long? No. Okay, all right. The data that goes in between that computer and this device is rarely encrypted. And I say rarely because I've never seen it. I've never been told that it's been encrypted, so I say rarely because I just don't know. There's probably some products out there that are. Software is not password protected, like I said. You can just go into Access, go into that folder, open up the database. I've got your license plate, I've got your phone number, your address, and all that stuff. Show physical connection on the board. You guys already know what an RS-232 connection looks like. Most devices use common keys. So the first, all 3 of those keys right there, A126, PK25, and Dorking, you type in any of those keys and it shows Google Shopping right there. You can buy any of those keys and have access to any of this stuff. Some devices do have tamper switches on them, so they'll create a log that says, hey, somebody's been in here. Most common protocol to directly communicate with them is RS-232. Even the devices that have IP address, like Linear makes a device that has an IP address and then communicates RS-232 in it. So it is vulnerable from that point on. But even then, and there's a link in here if you guys want it. There's a guy that talked about this at DEF CON. That between, it's still not secure. The data's still not secure from your computer to that module that has the IP address. Buy keys direct online. I don't need to show you anything about the computers.
Don't stick your access control system on your data network.
That is one of the things that I would say do it. And even the POT stuff, the plain old telephone service, is not encrypted, but nobody wants to steal a database at 4800. So, yeah, you'd be surprised at how outdated some of this stuff is. But you know what? It works, and it's not secure. It's supposed to be access control. Electronic brute force, like I was telling you about these pin codes, you guys already hit them all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all that stuff. Just by physically going to the keypad to get into it, or by doing it by remote, taking over the computer. Okay, once you do get inside of them, you'll typically see like access A or access B. I already turned this one off. And then all you do is you hit that button and actually it'll open up. Some devices like these older ones, you'll have to take your key and actually short 2 pins in there to actually get it to open. This device, the older devices, they won't have a push button that actually allows you to get to the gate. So you have to hit one of the requests to open. So like if you were hitting that push bar to get it open, you'd run it into that input electronically. It would say, hey, open this relay. And that's what you have to do. So you just simply just go in there, you pull off the connector, and then you take your wire, and then you take your key or anything that's conductive and short it between the two, and it'll open the gate. And if I remember correctly, it's probably one of these. Yeah, so there you go. Just hit that, lock it back up, and then go in. Okay? Let's see. I don't think there were any more cool things about that.
That's one of those ones that you actually have to dial the apartment number or something like that.
That's correct. So for instance, I've just got my number in here. So you just hit pound, and it says Michael 214. That 214 represents my number, 214-931, whatever. Real quick, a fun thing is to get the gate open from the outside, I just use the factory password 000000. It goes into, calls me an idiot. 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 6. It goes into programming, 99 pound. Same thing, fires the relay, and then now I get back out of programming and then go in.
Well, that can be useful. I've gone to people's houses that have these damn things.
Yeah.
You call them.
phone?
They call. No, they answer, but then like they say they hit the code in, it doesn't open.
Doesn't open up.
And then they do it again. Then you have to dial them again, and people stacking up behind you and everything.
Yeah, that's 99 gets you in, and same thing in the manual, at the back of the manual, how to open it, how to hold it open as well too. Thank you for giving me a service call at $129 an
How
hour.
many stars and how many zeros?
So factory code for the Syntex system is 3 stars, 6 zeros. And if that doesn't work, 1 2 3 4 5
What was
6.
the number after that?
99.
99.
Yeah.
Zip code, apparently.
99 pounds.
Yeah. 99 pound, and that'll get you in, and you don't have to remember how to get out of this. After 2 minutes, it'll just automatically go back to what it is. To get out is 00 pound, get you back out to whatever you want to see. Some of the units with the larger screens will actually pull the database up there. So if you wanted to verify credential, you could actually go in there and say, I want to verify 214, and it would have my phone number, when I'm allowed to get in, if it were an elevator, what floor I'm allowed to access, that type of stuff. So, so bypass the tamper with gate operator arms. We talked about the fire department. We were talking about, let's see, so you buy a gate operator, you have it installed at your HOA or at your house. It's real easy for these guys to actually use the factory equipment that's in there, because they don't have to buy another $90 receiver, put it in there, program it to your remotes or whatever the case may be. So I can do that at the shop, pull it out of the box when I get there. You never know the difference, and I still have my remote programmed to your gate, and I can use it at any time. So with these factory receivers, as soon as that guy walks off your property, take it and delete all the information out of there, and you typically just do it by holding the program button until it flashes, so 30 seconds or whatever. Similar to like the Lear card use system. If you guys ever use that, you want to delete everything out, you hold both of the buttons on the outside until it flashes, then that deletes everything out. It's rare that we have those type of people in our industry, but it happens. Just like any other industry, you got people with bad intentions. And in doing so, you bypass any audit trail, if there is one. And let's see, automobile factory transmitters, manufacturers will send, oh yeah. So does anybody have Lear Car to You or HomeLink in their car? They're the 3 little buttons that are on the visor or in the middle. When we get a system that we cannot get the car to program, and it was generally in 1.0 and right around there in the 1, once, and 2.0 I think has fixed all this stuff. What they would do is they would take it, send us a receiver that has 10 dip switches in it, hook it to the access system, it bypasses the audit trail, it bypasses everything, but that customer can get in, and they'd send it to us for free. So why not use it, and that customer gets happy. So if you ever see any anybody with or any of the boxes say LearCard U or HomeLink on the back of the access panel, it could be an indication that just a 10-digit 10 dip switch remote could work. We were talking about power vulnerabilities earlier. What's common these days with gate operators, barrier arms, overhead doors, is they're going with DC motors. And the thing with DC motors that you get is you get the ability to easily hook up solar, easily run off batteries, and you get the ability to have a battery backup. Everybody's seen the LiftMaster garage doors. When the power is out, your garage door will go up, just no problem. Well, they have a little switch in there, and if anybody was here when I unplugged this thing, that sets up in a fail-safe or fail-secure is the exact name. So as soon as it loses power, it'll send a signal and open up that gate. And if you live in the city of Dallas, that's what they require. They require that for the mag locks we were talking about earlier. As soon as you lose power, they want access to the property. And if it's battery backed up, now Dallas may not say about battery backed up, but I was reading it's Rockwall or Planer or something like that. As soon as they lose power, gates open up. Whether you want to or not, to be in code, the gates will have to open up. So all somebody has to do is find a vulnerability, hit the breaker. You can hit some gates, hit the power switch on the front that you have access to without a key, and they'll kick on. So if I drop this thing right now is set to fail safe. So as soon as it loses power, it's going to open up that gate and it's going to give it a command.
Will you stop touching me? Jackass says what?
So it's going to sit there and cycle through,
give me a drink.
open the gate and all
Seriously,
that stuff.
you're going to touch this after you read the sign that says don't touch?
Shut up. All right, so that was an example. As soon as I lost power, I've got a device that doesn't have power, but that relay went from an open state to a closed state, and it's going to send a command to whatever's on the other side of that barrier arm, garage door opener, whatever the case
I
may
got a
be.
question on that.
Yes, sir.
Did you reprogram the sound on a default equipment, or was that something else that was making the sound?
Something else that was making the sound. Yeah. Does something have sound capabilities on it? The linear stuff actually does, but not that you can actually override as a user. You
That
may
would
be
have
able
been
to,
hilarious.
yes, well, for $34 at Micro Center, you can hook that up to a relay that will do that if I wanted to. So demonstrate dropping power on the loop detector. If that loop detector were hooked to a gate, gate would automatically open up as soon as it loses power. So I go back, I find the breaker panel. Could be on the outside of the property, on the unsecure side of the property. Open it up, hit that, it opens up, and it bypasses any audit trail. Unless there's something like this call box that's hooked on the same breaker that goes down and comes back on, but it just says AC power fail and turns back on. In-ground inductive loop. So you come up to your house, all right, or to a gate, or to a garage door opener, or to an overhead door. We have safety devices, and those devices are cut into the ground. One of them is cut into the ground, and we put a coil of wire in the ground, and then we seal it back up, okay? And then we energize that circuit, okay? And we send an alternating signal, and it actually creates a magnetic field. What it does then is this device monitors the inductance and says, if there's a fluctuation that meets this or that, let me know. Bicycle may not trip it, depending upon sensitivity. Truck, car, motorcycle will trip it, depending upon the sensitivity. And what happens is somebody comes over.
Seriously, you're going to touch this after you read the sign that says don't touch?
I got to make those shorter. All right, so a car comes up to it, hits this loop, and the gate, whatever's on the other end, hits the device. But you have multiple loops, and each one of them does different things or could do different things. This one is only simulating an exit device. So it gives a command to the gate operator. It doesn't say stay open if there's a car there. It says open, I'm there. So if that thing's 4 feet from the gate, and I just need to induce that magnetic field to get within those parameters, rare earth magnet, ladder, piece of sheet metal, anything like that. So typically the closest that you'll see them is 4 feet. But the gates that swing open, they'll typically be past 4 feet past the gate. So you'll see them at 4 feet. But 4 feet away, I can get into your gate and I bypass the audit trail And,
That's how traffic lights work too. People think it's due to weight. No, it's due to induction. And we used to take, like when, the old company I used to work at, when we would destroy a hard drive, we take the magnets out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend of mine that would put them on his freaking motorcycle.
Yep.
So it actually would work.
Yeah, but sometimes the motorcycle doesn't have enough metal on it to trigger a light.
Yeah. So just take one of those magnets, sometimes around, roll it across under the gate. It induces that field and tells the gate to open. Leave it there on the corner, and somebody's got some guy like me. I would never suspect somebody to do that. Corners are generally more sensitive than inside or the outsides of loops. Leave it there. Gate stays open. Can't figure it out until somebody comes and knocks it away. Next slide, see what a saw cuts. So what you're looking at, if you want to know whether it's got an inductive loop, and 9 times out of 10, it does. If it's commercial property or multifamily residential, it's got to have some safety loop. It doesn't have to. There are codes that say it does have to, but the state of Texas, there's only one state that does, Nevada, that follows the code, these Underwriter Laboratory 325, and we're not one of them. So we don't have to. We just have to make sure it doesn't hit anybody's car. Whether it's on there or not, it doesn't matter. But to cover our asses, we tell people that they've got to have these loops in the ground. Social engineering, you guys know probably how to manipulate. Well, I'm not making it sound like y'all know anything, but how to bypass some of these things. But you'd be surprised with a white truck, a hard hat, and a vest, how easily you can get into a property. And the other thing is pulling up to a guard. Hey, I need to check this. It happens, you know. There's only a few secure places that will jump all over your head, that will follow you into the property, call the cops, and get you. And most likely you guys don't live in any of them, and I'm not trying to insult anybody. Because there are places that have 4 people that live in them, and I know the people. So wrapping this thing up, first of all, thanks for listening to all that stuff. I hope you at least gained one bit of knowledge. So lowering your risk, you guys already know probably all the stuff that has to do with security on a computer, on a piece of software. So change the default password, change the locks on the front of these. It could possibly, if you belong to an HOA, cost you a little bit more because you have to give locks to all the people that have access to it to repair it. Do that. It will prevent some people with the knowledge from getting in. Put an alarm on your house. Put closed circuit TV on your house. Back up your databases regularly, and download the logs regularly. Be interesting to know who's actually. Most of this software will log when somebody's been in there and when somebody gets out. And guys like me who don't know how to manipulate that or clear the logs will leave that audit trail in there, and you guys can get in there and actually see if a homeowner, which I've had, people get pissed off, get kicked off the board, still have access to the computer, will get in there and start deleting codes and get me fired. Because I can't figure out what's going on, but somebody has a back door to it to get in. Secure your network or keep it off the network. Use facility codes. If you have these remotes, that 5-digit code is only part of the data that comes through there. You still have 256 codes. Use those. Access control is not security. It's only a layer. Use qualified people, and make sure that people who are supposed to have the codes have the codes. I'll give you guys these slides. There's some really interesting stuff in here. For instance, I think whoever's talking about the Toyota Corolla that got overtaken, there actually is a guy who actually for 30-something bucks. I'm not saying, I don't know what vehicles manipulate it, but it was at DEF CON talk as well too. He was able to take his own vehicle over with this device. And there's the talk that I was talking about, this Dennis guy, about manipulating the linear stuff. And are there any questions? Does anybody have anything that they want to talk about?
You did say you were giving the slides out?
Yes. Yeah, so you don't need to document any of that stuff.
Awesome. Son of a bitch, you should have said that before.
That was actually one of the first things he said.
I walked in late.
Was it?
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, you said
Okay.
the slides will be provided.
Okay, good.
I'm just teasing.
And
Thank you.
to the FBI.
This actually,
That's
this
it.
Everybody's name
Yeah.
here.
Who's got their number? So thank you. This is really awesome. I really enjoyed this.
Oh,
yeah.
sure. I hope that you got one thing. I'm sorry that I'm not
multiple
as smart
things.
as you guys. And this stuff, if y'all want to manipulate it or play with it or whatever, or make fart noises on the machine, you can.
What about defense? What can you do in certain situations where you have to have like the fire department box on the front of the building? What can you do to secure like a data center or a portion of an office space without necessarily breaking the law?
I'm sorry.
Big burly people.
Yeah.
To make it secure, people.
Guns.
People.
Guns of the-
There-
We just talked about the hard hat.
Yes, good point. So I probably wouldn't be qualified to talk about on the social engineering part, but these locks, I mean, they're sending the same lock to you to secure your data room as they are to me to help somebody else install this lock on their property. What happens between the time that I get it from them and I actually go install it? Do I get the opportunity to reverse engineer it? So unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to prevent the knock stuff. The knock stuff they have to have on there. The locks, the key twist locks, the little box on the front door.
It doesn't have to be for every room in the building, right?
No, it does not.
Like banks, their vault doesn't open up when somebody pulls the fire alarm.
No, it's typically so for a commercial
I wouldn't know from experience.
a commercial property. I can't give you the exact rules per room. A residential property, if there's somebody that's living and breathing on the other side of that door, anytime that there's anything that happens with a fire alarm or anything, and there's a device that's stopping it, it's going to drop it out. So
You have to prove it's not a habitable space. Or not
I don't know the technical term for it, but so when you get your CO, and I could be talking a little out of school here, but when you get your CO, it's zoned for a particular thing, and that's probably what they're looking at.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I dealt with that once.
Yeah.
I
So
just didn't know if there were things you could do besides going back to pin and tumbler.
nothing I can think of off the top of my head, not for that specifically, other than the things that I just talked about.
One of the things that we're doing at the lab is that we have a RFID, and then we have a PIN, and then we're thinking about implementing a two-factor authentication.
Which would be?
So either it's just going to be the PIN in your RFID, so it's something that you have and something you know,
Okay.
or have it so it calls your phone and then you have to put in the code. So you can't just get right in, but.
Do you know what brand manufacturer equipment that you have?
We used cheap, so it's secure.
Okay.
No, it was off of Amazon. It was just like one of those known. It wasn't like a no-name brand.
Okay.
Like homebrew kits where you just kind of do it yourself.
Gotcha.
But the hardest part's been intercepting the SQL database because they're using Access for the backend. Is what they want you to use for default, and we're trying to get the SQL language to go to our own database so we can control everything.
Gotcha. But so the concern that I would have there is whatever this device is, the pins.
It's an RFID. What uses the facility code. It's a WIEGAND.
Are you using a facility code?
I am going to be now.
Okay, yeah. I would use, just because if it's at the 125 kilohertz, like a majority of the KEYPADs are, and it's 26-bit length. Do you know if it's 26-bit?
26-bit.
Okay, so you have 6,535 or 36, depending upon whether you start at 1 or 0.
We all start at 0 here.
Okay. Is that a programmer thing?
Yeah.
I watched out as a programmer in like 2 months. I was like, the question that I had that got me fired is why can't I change the static variable? Yeah, thanks. It's like, yeah, it's static. That's why you can't change it. So that's what my thing would be is if you're using facility codes, great. You have that whatever the number of permutations is, the 256 times that 65,000. But other than that, it's still duplicatable. To go past that is to find a proprietary system that uses 31 bits or up to WIEGAND stops at 37 is the largest bit length that it has.
Yeah.
And I don't know anybody that's using past 31.
It can get up to 31 when you're using the PIN. So it does it has your RFID tag, and then you have your
So it's the last
then you have a
4
PIN
bits.
number.
The 4 bit last 4
Yeah.
bits are per PIN.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but that's great. A double layer, and then the other thing would be is the officers of the place to be able to pull up at any particular time, voice and audio, and that's really inexpensive and really easy to do.
To do what?
Voice and video, to be able to at any time be able to say.
Oh,
yeah.
no, our entire place is rigged up with cameras facing in each direction in every room,
Gotcha.
and it has video and audio.
Gotcha.
And we take that off site, so it's not
Good.
stored on site.
Yeah. So the only other thing that would be that is to have that stuff monitored real time. So
Yeah.
and that's expensive. So
Actually, I think with ZoneMinder, you can actually detect it, so you can set times where it'll like alert you
that's
for when
correct.
people aren't typically there. But it's a 24/7 shop.
So my my DVR has an email server built onto it,
Yeah.
and any particular scenarios that I have, it'll send me an email. Now it's pretty slow at my house, but yeah, it'll send you an email in a couple minutes. You'll get it saying that I got motion on this, or I got an audio level past this on this particular one. Monitor it, and then I just hit it.
If you have the fire department key box
Yeah.
on the front of the building, can you set the dip switch to fail secure?
For the fire department, anything with
Without violating building codes?
no, because they're going to want whatever that device is supposed to unlock. Well, but see, here's the thing. So that's the answer if there's electronic access control. If it's a manual door, which they don't require it to be electronic or non-electronic, if it's a manual, then of course that wouldn't apply. But if it's an electronic door, if it has an electronic device on it, that fire alarm goes off, it's going to open.
Yeah, so that key box doesn't matter if it's all electronic because everything unlocks anyways.
That's correct.
Is it?
Or and then if the fire alarm panel doesn't trigger it, it stays locked. And
So you could have 6-factor authentication. If somebody pulls a fire alarm, that door's going to unlock.
do you have your fire alarm panel hooked up to your access control?
Is it required by law?
Does anybody live there?
No.
Is it open 24 hours?
Yeah.
What city?
Plano?
If you, I can't do Plano. No, I was going to say I'll get you that answer. One thing that's great about Dallas, although depending upon who you talk to, they'll tell you exactly what it is because they're typically going by whatever the National Electric Code is and all the provisions that go along with that. Fire stuff is NFPA 70 or whatever, and they typically go by that as well too. And they are not flexible on it. At least Dallas is not to a fault sometimes. But so I don't know.
It's probably extended to Plano though.
What's that?
Yeah, it's probably extended to Plano though.
Well, the NEC is national.
It's really easy to copycat, an existing, policy.
You would be surprised at how many smaller cities take word for word
All
kinds of different policies and laws.
I expect some trash to be in Roanoke, but like Plano, probably it's kind of like Dallas, I would imagine.
Well, they probably
You never know though.
stuff in.
You never know till you check from that shit.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So that's pretty much all I got, and I'll do the things that I talked about. First of all, thank you for letting me record audio and video. I'll put it up on YouTube. You send it to all your members. Anybody's got a problem with it, I'll cut out whatever they want. If there's a big problem, I'll take everything out. And that's it.
Cool. Thanks. Cool.
Thanks. Appreciate it, guys. An hour. I told my girlfriend I had 20 minutes worth of stuff to talk about.
Hey, great presentation, homeboy.
All right. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
accesscontrolforum.com/wiki, WIKI, is a wiki that's for people in our industry. We are still working on the format, so if you have any suggestions, feel free to email me. We've also updated accesscontrolforum.com/calendar, and that's got national and international events on there. We may update with regional events, but as of right now, we're just doing the bigger conferences.